Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Andrew Perlin Insurance Explained. Today we're going to talk about the difference between a captive agent, a broker, and going direct. There's some pros and cons to each of them, so it's very important that you understand it. I don't want to sit here and say that one is better than the other because that's not a true statement. But there are some differences. You need to be made aware of them. So there's three things we're going to talk about today. One is what a captive agent is, what a broker is, what going direct is, the pros and cons of both, how they both get paid, why would you want to choose one versus the other. Full disclosure, as I'm recording this, I am currently a broker. I was a captive agent, so I have knowledge on that side too. I just want you to be aware of where I'm coming from. This is not designed to push you in one direction or another. This is purely information to help you make a decision when you're looking at making a switch or why things are happening inside of your policy or with your agent. This hopefully will help you out. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of this. So here's the deal. Most people really don't choose their agent. When you buy insurance, you either inherit an agent, like your parents' agent, get referred to somebody, or you go to the insurance company directly. No one really has an insurance agent that they picked. Shouldn't say nobody, but typically speaking, right? But as a result of that, there's three ways you can buy insurance. And I'm talking primarily through the P&C channels. And when I say P&C, I mean property and casualty. What that means to the end user really is home, auto, umbrella, boat, motorcycle, commercial lines. There are some similarities between being a broker for P&C versus life, and there's some subtle differences that we may get into depending on how long this goes. The three things we're going to talk about are the captive agent, the broker, and going direct. All right, so what's a captive agent? A captive agent usually represents one insurance company. When you call that agent, you're going to get a quote through this one company. Now, is that good or bad? It depends. When you're dealing with a captive, their parent company usually has their primary product. And typically on the P&C world, it's home and auto. That's usually their primary thing when you're talking about personal lines anyway. So you're going to get a quote from the captive agent from their primary carrier, and that's all you're going to get. In some circumstances, a captive agent is allowed to go outside of their agency model to find other carriers for you, provided that insurance company they're captive with doesn't have that option. I see it a lot on the personal lines where you're captive on home and auto, but if a business owner that comes knocks on your door and like, hey, can you do commercial auto or can you do a business owner's policy? The captive might not really care if you use another venue or channel for that. They may have something to say about it as far as what companies you can go to, but typically speaking, they're not going to get in the way. But when it comes to their core product, you're stuck. Here are the pros of a captive agent. They know their company really well. They know all the ins and outs, how these policies fit together. They know all the details as far as discounts and things and how to situate this stuff. And they do a really nice job of it. They're usually very helpful when it comes to making changes to your policy. They know the system cold. They know where to find it. They can get it done relatively easy. If there's any kind of issue at the home office, typically speaking, they are able to get that done. Right? Brokers may have a hard time doing that, but that's the pros of working with a captive agent. Some cons are that they only offer you one company. If you're trying to get quotes, multiple quotes, and you're calling it captive, and in the quotes you're looking for are their core products, you're only going to get that company. Like, that's it. They're not going to be able to go out and give you something else. If you keep on calling captive agents, you're going to get their core. Meaning, if you want 5 quotes and you call 5 captives, right, you got to go and get that. Could take a while, and you never know if you're getting the best price in the market. All you're dealing with is this captive agent. If rates go up or down, they have no recourse. It just is what it is. They can finagle your policy to a certain extent. While I'm here, I'm just going to tell you, never lower your coverage to meet a price. I just would not do that. But that's one of the things that they would do. They may lower your coverage, they may raise your deductible, but they have no other options. They can't go to another company to give you a better rate. They're just not allowed to do that. So their options are definitely limited. Now, let's talk about a broker. That's what I am. Again, I was a captive. I understand how they operate, and they're fine. I got no problems with captives. But I'm a broker. I became a broker for a lot of reasons, a lot more flexibility on my part. I represent a lot of different companies. You call me, I can give you a 100% look at your policy, just like a captive can, and then I can say, hey, listen, I'm going to go and shop this through every carrier that I'm licensed with, right? So I can just shop you all day. And my hook to you is I'm going to make sure you have the best price and the best coverage. That's it. I'm going to shop it. When I present to you, you're going to know I'm giving you the best one. Everything has been quoted. A lot of my clients love the fact that I can do that. Some of the cons are that the process is pretty complex. If you want me to do all that, I just can't get you on the phone. You call me today, hey, I want a quote. Great. I got all your information. And unless you're telling me I need this company, in order for me to do my job properly, you might not get that quote for a day or two. Or depending on how busy I am, it could be a day, it could be a week. It just depends. So that's the cons. But typically speaking, I turn around and get the information, run it through my system. I tweak these quotes because I'm quoting 10 or 15 different companies for one client until I find what I'm looking for. So that can take a while. So it's a pretty complex thing. And the quality of your broker matters, because if I'm going to sit here and tell you that I'm going to give you all of these quotes and I don't, like I might say, hey, what are you paying? And you're telling me I pay $200 a month for your auto insurance, and I find something at $190. Well, that's a win, right? I'm saving you money, hopefully giving you better coverage. But did I do my homework? Is there another company out there that can save you $20 a month? I make sure that I look at everything, but there are brokers that don't. I get my price, I'm good, I'm going to sell it. So you don't really know what you're getting. You're just getting what the broker tells you. So you got to make sure you pick a good one. A broker can be a huge asset, but a broker could also be a detriment. Just like I said, I can shop everything or not, and you won't know the difference unless you go out and do it yourself. At least with a captive, you're getting their best and only quote. That's all they can do. So it just depends on who you're working with. And then, of course, you have going direct. So what going direct means is that you are bypassing the middleman. That would be me or the captive. You're just bypassing us. We're not involved anymore. You call the insurance company. The insurance company puts somebody on the phone. Usually they're licensed, but not always. They don't really talk coverage with you, which is one of the cons. And they give you a price. That price will be lower than any captive or any broker. And the main reason for that is that they're not paying me. That's cut out. So automatically you're going to get a better rate. So if you're just looking for cheap insurance without necessarily caring about what your coverage amounts are, you just need something to be on the road because MBA doesn't find you, go direct. Makes a lot of sense. I would too. But the cons is that you have to make sure you know what you're doing. The person on the other side on the phone probably doesn't. They're just like, yeah, great. I'll just give you a quote. Like, what are you looking for? Most people do this. How about these deductibles? Yeah, sure. It sounds great. And you get this quote. And then you go back to me and say, hey, I got this quote from so-and-so. Can you beat it? And I'm like, no, because you went direct. I cannot beat a direct price. I mean, sometimes I can. But typically speaking, I don't. The other con with going direct, besides the fact that you don't really know what you've got, is once you're in that direct environment, the premiums are lower. It's hard to get out of it because you want the low premium. I mean, I get it too. I always tell my clients, you get what you pay for. If you go direct, you don't have an agent or a broker. You call the 800 number, you get a different person on the phone every time. I'm sure they have notes on their computer and see what was going on, but you may have to explain everything over and over again, and it just takes longer. That's what happens when you go direct. The claim support on a direct typically feels it's transactional because they don't care. They just like claim, adjust, check, done. Whereas at least when you're dealing with a broker or a captive, you're my client. I'm going to make sure that this claim is settled correctly. And if you have any problems with the claim, you get to call me or your captive agent. And they're going to do whatever they can to shake the tree a little bit. They might not be able to change the result, but they'll certainly be advocating on your behalf. That's the difference. And that's why I have a hard time with going direct. But again, if you just want cheap, just get me on the road so motor vehicle leaves me alone, go direct. It makes all the sense in the world. I just wouldn't recommend it on a long-term basis. But hey, man, you got to do what you got to do. All right, how do you get paid? Okay, it's important that you know how an agent or broker gets paid because that's why we do this. We do it to make money just like you work your job to make money. This is how we do it. We get paid a commission. Let's talk about the captive first. We get paid by commission. The commission is baked into the rate. So when you get a rate of $200 a month for whatever policy that you're trying to buy, the commission's already in there, right? So you don't have to pay the insurance company and then pay the agent. I know there are some states that have an agent fee on top of it. The state that I represent does not do that. So I don't have a lot of familiarity with that whole thing. But at the end of the day, that's what's happening there. Typically speaking, you pay your rate $200 a month or whatever it is. The commission is baked into that number. You pay that. As soon as you bind the policy, whether you pay it monthly or in full, the agent gets a cut. Just how that works, right? So obviously, that's why we want to sell insurance because we make money when we do it. Now, when you go direct, that part's not there like I mentioned earlier. So that's why the rate's cheaper. There's no one to pay. The insurance company just collects all the money. They cut out the middleman, and that's why it's a cheaper number. Now, there's not much more to talk about when it comes to going direct. So let's talk about captives for a second. Captive agents usually get a higher upfront commission and additional incentives to bundle their products. So when you bundle a product, you heard that on the commercials, right? You take your home and your auto and you put it together under the same carrier, you tend to get a better rate on both. Captives do that a lot, and I would do that a lot too as a broker. You would get the end person a better rate. Captives do it because they tend to get a higher upfront commission than a broker. I would bet almost every captive scenario pays a little bit higher than they're paying me, which I get. They're captive. I understand. They get more incentive when they bundle these products together, and that's just typically how that would work. The other thing about a captive agent, and this is my experience anyway when I was a captive agent, is because they're giving you these higher numbers and these bundling quotas, you have a monthly goal that you have to hit every month in some capacity, whether it's policies or premium or bundle amounts. You have to hit this monthly goal. And when you hit that goal, then you get all this incentive that you wouldn't ordinarily get. And if they don't hit their number, their payout is really bad. At least that was my life when I was a captive agent. So that's why I call them a little bit more pushier when it comes to that kind of thing. And the other thing about captive agents, in my experience, is that their comp plan changes every year, at least mine did. It put more pressure on new business production. They always did something to incentivize you to sell more. They'd give you more, and if you don't, they give you a lot less. So that always changed. I didn't like that about being a captive. It changed every year. You couldn't do any real planning until you figured out what the next year's comp plan was going to be. Now, when a policy renews on a captive, and this is where it gets a little different, the new business, when they first bind it, that payout's usually higher. The residual or the renewal is usually lower. The captive is very interested in keeping you there because they want to grow their book as big as possible, but they'll get a smaller cut of that residual. So if you buy a 6-month auto policy brand new to a captive, they get paid probably a higher amount, and if you bundle it, even higher. But in 6 months when it renews, that commission is at a much lower rate. So they may get 10, 20, 30, 40% on the upfront, depending upon what company you're dealing with. And then on the back end, 9%. The reason for that is they're paying them so much money up front, the insurance company has to make a little bit of money on the back end. That goes into one of the cons of a captive, is that they want to keep you on board as a renewal. They certainly do, but they can't do a whole lot about it. If the rate goes up, the rate goes up. And if they lose you, they lose a very smaller percentage. So their primary focus is always going to be new business. That's how they get paid. Brokers usually don't have these monthly quotas. Usually it's an annual contract, and you have to hit an annual number. Now that number is not huge because most of these broker arrangements know that brokers have a handful of appointments with other companies. So these numbers are a little bit lower. The rate that I get paid on commission is not nearly as high as the captive. Once I sign the contract, they're pretty much not changing it. The flip side is when it renews, right, and I keep it with that same company, my renewal commission is the same as my new business commission. So to me, it's like I just sold the policy again without really doing anything. If the client decides, hey, this isn't good enough, I want a better rate, and I shop it and I take you from company A to company B, well, company B will pay me the new business rate, and it doesn't usually change. Once I sign my broker agreements, I don't believe my commission rate has changed at all from that. And they're good enough, it makes sense for me to do it, certainly, but that's the difference. You may run into a captive who's a little bit more pushy towards the end of the month, where a broker, I'm not as pushy because my numbers really don't change a whole lot. I make more money the more I sell, but I'm not getting a bigger percentage if I sell more in a given month. Both captives and brokers are usually eligible for year-end bonuses depending upon what's in their contract and what their production requirements are. So I'm representing a lot of different insurance companies, and they pay me a bonus every year. It's not a huge bonus, but each one of them pays me something. When I was captive, if I hit certain numbers every year, I got a bonus. That number was big because they know that's all I've got, right? So that's pretty much how they do that. So yes, you can get bonuses as a captive or as a broker. That should not affect the rate for your client. It's just a bonus based on numbers. And they pull that out of surplus. Usually, I mean, it's an insurance company. They may raise rates as a result of it, but I tend to not believe that's true just based on what I've been told and what I've been seeing. Do you get better rates one way or the other? Rates change all the time. They change due to inflation, through the reinsurance strategies, claims. Like there's all kinds of reasons why rates change. Typically speaking, I would say captives get better treatment than brokers as far as rate is concerned anyway, but it's not a tangible number. It's based on what I can tell. But I'm sure there's a little bit of a difference between the two. The flip side of that, though, is that I can take I can put your home here and your auto there and give you the best rate possible. And on the aggregate, sometimes that's better than bundling it with the captive. It just depends on what's going on. That's one of the advantages of the broker, is that I know what the risk is. I can find the right company for it. The best part about it is when it renews, it renews. If you get a 5% rate increase, it's 5% from the base. You'll still see that. Same thing with direct. They'll raise their rates accordingly. The only difference is that they don't have the commission to pay. All right, so how do you decide what's right for you? The real question isn't which model is better. The real question is, what do you value? Do you value simplicity? If you do, go direct. It's just easier. If you don't want to go direct because you don't like working with call center, then go captive. That's probably the easiest way. If you know the company you want, I'm very careful not to put a company's name there because I'm not trying to plug anybody. But if you want that company, you know that's what you want, go find a direct agent. It's easy. They know it real well. They'll probably give you a slightly better rate than I can give you as a broker. And they just know the internals much better than I would. If you value flexibility and you value understanding that, hey, I'm working with somebody who's going to make sure I get the best coverage at the best rate no matter what company it is. As a consumer, simplicity all the way, man. I don't have time for this nonsense. Now that I'm older and I've got a family and a home and all the things that go along with it, I want to make sure I'm getting the best value. And I don't really care what insurance company it is. To be perfectly honest with you, I want to make sure that I'm covered properly and I want to make sure I'm getting the best rate overall. And if I have to bounce around every so often to find it, I'm definitely going to do that. Because one thing that I've learned in all of my years of doing this, there is no more loyalty anymore. Those loyalty discounts are out the window. What are you looking for? What are you most comfortable with? If you don't like working with the call center, then don't go direct. If you want somebody that knows you, go captive or go with a broker. There are excellent captive agents out there. There are excellent brokers out there. And there are situations where going direct makes the most sense. It just depends on what's most important to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you one's better than the other because they're not. They're all got their spot. But you have to understand what it is you're looking for. And that's really what it boils down to. Your captives and brokers are going to make money because that's why they're doing it. Your direct is going to give you a cheaper rate, but they're not really going to give you a whole lot of insight as to what you should have. And they're certainly not going to give you any insight on how to handle claims or things like that. That's not what they do. Whereas your broker or your captive agent, their main job is to build a relationship with you and to make sure you are getting the best possible rate and care. Unfortunately, the captive only has one company. The brokers have multiple. So just got to figure out which one makes the most sense for you. If you're not sure which model you should be using, you're really not alone. Understanding the differences helps you ask better questions, which ultimately helps you make a better decision. Insurance works best when you understand how it actually works. If you like what you heard here, like the channel below. That's how we grow. If you're not sure what's right for you, DM me or contact me through YouTube or Facebook, and we will have a conversation about it. They're just things that you need to be made aware of, and sometimes a situation calls for a certain thing. But at the end of the day, my job, again, is to make sure that you understand exactly what's happening so you can make a decision from a position of strength and not just wonder, what am I doing? That's the whole point of this. Thank you for listening to today. This was a lot longer than I thought, but my name is Andrew Perlin. This is Insurance Explained. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.